Life often feels predictable until it doesn't. One day blends into the next with routines, laughter, and familiar rhythms, and then something unexpected interrupts it all. For Kelly Ripa, that interruption came suddenly, turning an ordinary day into a moment that would reshape how she understood time, love, and presence. There was no dramatic buildup, no warning sign that life was about to demand her full attention. In an instant, certainty gave way to fear, and the sense of control she once relied on slipped quietly out of reach. What followed was not just a period of worry, but a deeply personal reckoning with what matters most when everything else falls away. A moment that felt unreal. When Kelly found herself in a hospital setting beside her husband, Mark Consuelos, the experience felt detached from reality, as though she had stepped into someone else's life. The man she knew as her partner in everyday jokes and shared responsibilities suddenly felt fragile, surrounded by unfamiliar sounds and careful voices. The shock wasn't loud or chaotic, it was heavy and disorienting. Time seemed to move strangely, stretching and compressing in ways she couldn't explain. In those early moments, she realized how quickly normalcy can disappear and how vulnerable even strong, loving families truly are. Waiting in a world of uncertainty. The hours that followed were filled with waiting, the kind that leaves too much room for thought. Kelly sat with questions that had no immediate answers, feeling suspended between hope and fear. The environment was calm on the surface, yet emotionally overwhelming. Each minute felt significant, even when nothing visibly changed. She later reflected that this kind of waiting is its own challenge, forcing you to confront how little control you actually have. All she could do was stay present, offering quiet reassurance through touch, words, and simply being there. A father thinking only of love. In the midst of uncertainty, Mark expressed something that revealed the core of who he was. His thoughts were not centered on himself, but on their children. He wanted to see them, not out of panic, but out of love. It was a request shaped by the instinct of a parent who understands that connection matters most when life feels fragile. For Kelly, this moment carried deep emotional weight. It wasn't spoken dramatically, yet it held the kind of meaning that lingers long after the words fade. It reminded her that love often shows itself most clearly in moments of vulnerability. The weight of an impossible choice. Honoring Mark's wish required Kelly to make a difficult decision. She wanted to protect their children from fear, yet she knew that honesty and presence were equally important. Shielding them completely felt wrong, but exposing them to uncertainty felt equally painful. After careful thought, she chose to bring them together as a family. It wasn't a decision rooted in certainty, but in trust. Trust in their bond, trust in their children's resilience, and trust that facing things together was better than facing them alone. A family sharing one room. When their children arrived, the atmosphere shifted, the room filled with emotion, love, and unspoken understanding. Mark spoke to each child in his own way, offering reassurance, encouragement, and the kind of guidance only a parent can give. Kelly watched quietly, absorbing the gravity of the moment. It wasn't about fear, it was about connection. In that space, roles mattered less than relationships. The family wasn't focused on outcomes or timelines, but on being fully present with one another, holding on to the simple truth that love remains constant even when circumstances are uncertain. Quiet promises that last. Afterward, Mark asked Kelly to hold on to something important, that their children would always know how deeply they were loved. The request was soft but powerful, and it stayed with her long after. That night, and many that followed, were filled with reflection rather than panic. Kelly thought about memories, shared laughter, and the life they had built together. In those quiet hours, fear slowly transformed into resolve. She understood that love is not something to save for later, it is something to express fully, without delay. Finding strength in small signs. Over time, subtle signs of improvement appeared. They weren't dramatic or sudden, but they carried enormous meaning. A steadier breath, a stronger voice, a familiar smile. Each one felt like a gift. Recovery unfolded slowly, teaching patience and appreciation in equal measure. Kelly and the children learned to celebrate progress without rushing it, understanding that healing often moves forward in small, meaningful steps. The environment that once felt overwhelming began to feel hopeful, shaped by resilience and care rather than fear. Growing stronger together. As Mark regained strength, the family leaned into togetherness. They brought warmth and familiarity into each day, sharing stories, laughter, and encouragement. Kelly became both partner and advocate, learning how to support without losing herself in worry. Watching her children show compassion and maturity filled her with pride. These shared experiences deepened their connection, creating a bond strengthened not by perfection, but by honesty and perseverance. Through it all, they learned that love grows stronger when it is tested and nurtured at the same time. Life after the storm. When Mark was finally able to return home, the moment felt quietly monumental. Life resumed, but it did not return to how it had been before. Everyday routines now carried new meaning. Conversations felt more intentional, time felt more precious, and small joys were no longer overlooked. Kelly often reflected on what the experience taught her, that love should be expressed freely, that presence matters more than planning, and that nothing should be taken for granted. The journey reshaped their family not through fear, but through clarity. What truly remains. This chapter of Kelly and Mark's life was never just about recovery. It was about rediscovering what holds steady when everything else feels uncertain. It reminded them that success, schedules, and expectations fade in importance when faced with vulnerability. What remains is connection, honesty, and love expressed without hesitation. Their story speaks not to crisis, but to resilience, the kind built quietly through presence, compassion, and choosing one another every day. In the end, it wasn't control that carried them through, but love, steady and unwavering, guiding them forward together.